Welcome to our show today. You're watching the Janice Thompson Show. I am the producer and host, Janice Thompson. And we have a themed show today, as usual. It is entitled Breathing Lights, Breathing Hope. And for those of you who are not familiar with Breathing Lights, it is a public arts project that has been in existence since last year to bring attention to vacant buildings. I would like to read something off the Breathing Lights website. This past October and November, nightly from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., Breathing Lights illuminated the windows of hundreds of vacant buildings in Albany, Schenectady, and Troy. Warm light filled each window with a diffuse glow that mimicked the gentle rhythm of human breathing. Concentrated in neighborhoods with high levels of vacancy, Breathing Lights transformed abandoned structures from pockets of shadows into places of warmth. Breathing Lights was a winner of the Bloomberg Philanthropies Public Art Challenge for $1 million, which engaged mayors to collaborate with artists on developing innovative public art projects that enrich communities and attract visitors. And this has been going on since last October. I have two guests here today that will elaborate on this, and I wanted to introduce both of them. Marion Porterfield from our council in Schenectady, and investor Bonnie Nuvella. Both of them have been in the paper, cited recently for various things. So I wanted to start with Marion because Marion and I met at, I think it was St. George's Church,
yes.
that we met around the holidays, and Breathing Lights project came up, and here we are today. So thank you, Marion, for helping to get this started. So tell me a little bit about the beginnings of this project.
Sure, absolutely. When you read some in the introduction, so Breathing Lights is really about, it was a public art project to bring attention to a problem that's been ongoing for a long time, but it was really an innovative way to really call some attention to it. And beyond calling attention to it, to have a plan to do something about it.
Sure.
There are vacant homes in all cities, everywhere. And sometimes people just get used to them being there. They're just there, and they become sort of like they just become part of the scenery, and people become accustomed to it. So with this public art project, it was a way to actually to bring attention to it, because at night, these houses that were formerly vacant and dark are now being lit up. And so you got to see kind of where the vacancies were in the various cities. As you know, it was done over 3 cities. And so calling attention to it began a conversation about it.
Right.
And what can we do about that?
And it gave the impression that these buildings haven't really been forgotten.
Right. And actually, part of the theme really was to say that these buildings still had life in them.
Sure.
So that's therefore breathing lights.
Yes.
So the houses still, they were still breathing, there's still life, there was still opportunity to be revitalized and become a place that people can once again live.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, and how do you feel it's progressing? It's progressed.
Well, I think that it's progressed quite well, frankly, just because it was really a really innovative way that was taken, that was approached. It wasn't just, okay, we'll light up the houses and then let people figure out what's going on. There was a lot of work that went along with that.
Yeah.
And including workshops and public art projects that involved the community and actually got people really talking about it.
Yeah.
So, it's gone, and it continues to go because, we had the time with the 2 months when the houses were lit, and the houses now that they've gone dark, but they've started to become rehabbed. We know that my I'm going to call her my colleague.
Yes.
Here in this effort has been one of the people that is doing some of the rehabbing. So it's going along well, and it's bringing more and more attention. And it goes to show the potential of some of the properties that people would have thought, let's just tear it down. But it goes to show that these properties still have potential and some good structure and some bones, to start with.
Right, and we're going to talk to Bonnie in a minute. according to your website, it says this is unprecedented.
Yes.
It's a multi-city, so Albany, Schenectady, Troy, installation that transformed the public streets into an evocative experience,
Right.
and provided a platform to reinvigorate partners around the capital region's most visible symptom of decades of disinvestment. Working with dozens of community and private sector partners, Breathing Lights has included 8 months, so I guess it actually got started a little bit prior
It did.
to October, of programming and events, including youth media projects, building reclamation clinics,
Correct.
community arts presentations, gallery talks, policy discussions, and more. And at the end of the installation of the lights, the buildings went dark kind of one by one. And in sharing that sense of loss comes a stir to action. And so that's what, this is a lovely presentation on the website that people could go to and if they want to see what I just read to them.
Well,
So,
one
yeah.
of the good things I think about it is that 3 mayors from the 3 cities came together, Albany, Schenectady, and Troy, to say, this is something that we can work on together.
Yeah.
So I think anytime you could do things collaboratively and have that regional approach, I think that
Definitely.
just says a lot more, and a lot more can get done, where there's a sharing of ideas.
Yes.
You talked about that the houses were lit, but we also took people on tours and
Yeah.
actually talking tour, walking. So we go on the
Walking
bus,
tours.
talking tours, so
And
people understood
talking.
what the project was about. They
Right.
got to see the houses. So there were people who probably wouldn't have normally come to some of the neighborhoods
Yeah.
where the houses were now got to actually go and to see the homes as they were lit and to learn more about the project. Some of those people perhaps would buy homes. Some of them may have been investors.
Sure.
So there was really an opportunity to really just totally educate people about this project.
Yeah, and then Bonnie here got interested around that time, but you had done something prior to the project, right?
Yeah, that's correct, Janice. It was very fascinating to me because this project, I was sort of honored to be welcomed into it and learn about Breathing Lights and what an amazing creative thing that Adam Fralin and Barb Nelson had created together
Yes,
from
and we
this
do
idea.
want to give them recognition
Sure.
because they were partly innovators of this program.
Well, actually, it was their
Yes.
concept.
Yes, that's
They
right.
were innovators. They thought of this concept.
They thought about that. Isn't that
Yes.
something? I thought it was fascinating when I read about it in the paper. And they're both located, well, she's in Troy, and he's with the university, I understand. He's a professor at Albany. So we have their pictures to show the audience. And so continue on what you were saying.
Sure, yeah,
Bonnie.
and it is. It's just such a fascinating idea. And my understanding about Adam and reading about his background is he's a professor, I believe, at the University of Albany, and is also he's also an artist, and he tends to specialize in art that's focused on light, which is fascinating, and because this truly is a metaphor for what is happening, as you have used the word illuminate, the idea that in the 3 towns that you mentioned of Schenectady, Troy, and Albany, there are thousands of vacant homes. And that's shocking when you think about that, because
Yeah.
I grew up in the Capital District. I grew up in Ballston Spa, and my family still lives in this region today. And I grew up watching decades of decay, and Schenectady was boarded up. So, when I returned to the area a few years ago and started to see and invest myself personally, I focused around the college area where I noticed that Union College was already making a lot of investment. And I
Right.
was so impressed with what Metroplex and others were doing to basically reinvigorate downtown Schenectady. And so I was invited to participate in Breathing Lights, in part because I was already renovating vacant homes, only a few of them. I'm not a large
Yeah.
investor. But having said that, I really was honored when they invited me to have 2 of the brick homes that I'm renovating on Eastern Avenue used in what's called the pilot version. So when they first tested the sequencing of the lights, and Adam and his technical team at the university were actually building the timing sequence of how the lights acted like they were breathing. They used my homes to do that, and I was so thrilled to be a part of it and to see from the inside exactly how they were using these LED lights to display the breathing effect on these vacant homes. And the houses are still vacant now because it's a lot of time and capital to actually renovate them and bring them back to life, so to speak.
So that was last March,
Approximately, yes.
and your buildings were used in the pilot program, and then
Yes.
then it jump-started in October.
Right. Actually,
You know,
each city had their
approximately,
launch. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Right.
that's exciting that you were part of that pilot program.
Well, it was great because, and in fact, I met Marion as the part of the group of people that are around Breathing Lights. And again, I'm just invited to be participating in it as a sort of a guest, if you will. But
Yeah.
I was honored to do that, and I got the opportunity to meet Marion and everyone, the 3 mayors,
Yeah.
as well as a whole slew of people that were involved with making Breathing Lights come together. And what I think is great about it is it's a true collaboration between the public side of people that are on council and in mayor's offices that need to actually see results in their community,
Yes.
and private, because these endeavors are expensive and they do require a lot of private capital. So that's my job on my side, and I work closely with Steve Streichman, who was with the Capital Region Land Bank at the time, and at the party we were at the church, which I know you'll talk about Sandy Vardine's work and
I
what she's
will.
doing on Eastern Avenue in the St. Mary's Church. We met there, and had this opportunity to sort of talk as a whole group about how we, together with the ambassadors, we get the people to walk from the
Yes.
streets that live there on Eastern Avenue. And it was really fascinating, Janice, just to see how the kids, the families were walking the streets and watching these lights at night and taking
Oh, that had to be
pictures.
fascinating. I just am intrigued by it. We have a picture of you with the ambassadors that we're going to put on air. And now, are the ambassadors all from Schenectady?
No, each city had
Each
ambassadors.
city, so you were
Right.
part of that group picture of the ambassadors from the 3 cities?
From the 3 cities, the picture that they'll
Okay.
be seeing is our ambassadors from the 3 cities. And it was important to do that, so because people are, and especially, we also say that we looked for people from the neighborhoods, because it was, then when people went to do tours, they could talk about not just what the house was now, but what the history of that home
Right.
was.
Yes.
Who lived there previously. So that was one of the reasons that we were very intentional about choosing ambassadors and looking for people who are willing to be part of the project.
Yeah.
Not only for that purpose, but to also engage the community and to embrace this, because there's people coming into your house, just in your neighborhood, just lighting up homes, and you're like, if you have no idea what you're like, what is that really all about?
Yeah.
But with the ambassadors, they served, or I should say we served as messengers to let people know what was going
Yes.
on, to engage the community. And so each city had their own, but we came together collectively sometimes, as that picture will show, to discuss
Yes.
things and then to do things in our neighborhoods.
And they lived in the
Yeah.
neighborhoods,
Yes,
right? Like I met a
absolutely.
young man over near the Boys and Girls Club in Schenectady. Who I don't even think he was 19 or 20.
Yeah.
He was
He's
such
still
a
in
nice
high
young
school,
man.
right? And he lived right down the
Yeah,
street.
yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's great.
Yeah, now, tell me where all these properties are located. And I know there were over 200, but they identified 186,
They lit
did you
about
say,
186.
to light. And where are they now, just for Schenectady, 186, right?
I think that was a total lit overall.
Total lit, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
total
correct.
lit.
There are a
Not
lot more
just,
vacant.
But in
yeah.
Schenectady County, Right.
I don't know that number taken out. I don't know
Okay.
how many of those were in Schenectady. I know the total lit was
total
186.
lit, so some
in the
could
entire
be in
project.
Albany, some could
Oh,
be.
absolutely.
Of course. So where are they located in Schenectady? We know about Eastern Avenue, and we are going to put on screen one of Bonnie's properties that she's very proud of, that is being renovated, that we went, our studio, SAC, you're watching SAC TV today, went over and filmed Bonnie's work, and she's hands-on, and you're an inspiration in what you're doing,
Thank you.
really. So where are the other ones located? We have Eastern Avenue. What other areas
the
of Schenectady?
The properties aren't any particular neighborhood. There are more in some neighborhoods than others. There are properties in Mount Pleasant. There are properties in Hamilton Hill. There's some in Vale. So they're kind of spread out throughout the city. And one of the things we tried to do initially was to try to get them so we could get a number of houses, like maybe on the same block, so it would really have an effect, not only as the breathing lights part, but when the renovation began, you could see how it changed the block.
Right.
Yes.
And so they're over various parts of the city, but mostly concentrated, I would say, Mount Pleasant, Hamilton Hill, part of Vale, and obviously Eastern Avenue, which Vale kind of connects to that. The Vale community connects to that.
Yes.
And one of the ways, in addition to what Sandy's done on Eastern Avenue,
Yes,
Okay.
on Eastern Avenue, which we should mention right now that Sandy renovated St. Mary's Church, and she bought it in 2012, and we have a great picture that I want to hold up.
Oh, okay.
So people can see, if they didn't see it in our Gazette, this was dated March 5th. This is a picture of the renovated St. Mary's Church on Eastern Avenue. This is an art venue location, but it's also, there's a restaurant in there. And she's been having events there. So I hope this shows, and a lot of people probably saw it. And that was probably the first thing that was done on Eastern Avenue, was her purchasing the church, right?
Yeah, I remember when she came before the council a couple of years ago, because she's done this before in other cities, and
Yes,
and
she has.
right, and said what she wanted to do, and it was kind of a new concept for us, so
Right.
but
Yeah,
but she wanted to buy it, so she bought it, and so she's done a marvelous job with renovating it, and as Bonnie has said, that's where I think one of the initial events for Breathing Lights was held right
Yes.
there at that venue.
yes, and when Sandy and I met, she told me that she renovated 3 brownstones in Troy and a church in Cohoes, but she wanted me to know that The Age of Innocence was filmed, this is a film a while ago, was filmed at one of her brownstones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's very proud of that. And I'm a film kind of fanatic,
Oh,
so
okay.
that was interesting to me. So anyway,
Yeah, there's on Stanley Street in Hamilton Hill. There's a that's one of the streets. If you ever see the Breathing Lights website, that picture is actually taken on Stanley Street. So those homes were part of the Breathing
okay.
Lights.
I wondered where that was.
That's right on Stanley Street.
Oh, okay.
And right around the corner from the Boys and Girls Club's former location at 400 Craig, right there. And those homes buildings were purchased by community builders. So they are also being renovated as we speak. Right now the work is already going on. So those that you saw lit as part of the Breathing Lights project are going to be put back on the tax roll. People were going to be living there again. And it's right there, and community builders is doing that work.
Oh,
Now, Janice, you entitled this episode Breathing
Breathing
Lights,
Lights, Breathing Hope.
And it's funny because I never expected that reaction from the community, but it has really been, I think, rewarding to be a part of that, because this is a long process. It doesn't happen quickly. It takes a lot of capital and a lot of patience, and frankly, a lot of people. There are so many people that I have to bring in, from electricians to plumbers and painters and workmen on a daily basis, to help make this actually come to fruition. And it's not an overnight thing, but what has been unexpected for me personally was how the people that live right there on the street have reacted to it. They're really hopeful again. So your title was perfect, because they do get excited to see the contractors going in and out of the buildings. And you would think they would get annoyed with like the extra trucks or cars on the street, but they haven't. People have been very gracious and welcoming and appreciative of the work that's going on, and I just
that's
feel,
so nice to hear.
and I feel like I'm a part of something. Like
Yes,
I do,
absolutely.
and it's just nice
You're
because
a part of something that's bigger than yourself.
I am. Yes.
And it's so wonderful we all should be involved in something that's bigger than ourselves. I feel that this is what we do here. I feel that I'm involved in something bigger than myself by being able to promote people like yourselves and the good works that you're doing.
If I can highlight one thing in particular that is sort of near and dear to my heart too, which is that when I started this project, the other thing I didn't expect was to realize just how many young people were out there without as much direction about where to focus their own energies for their long-term career or occupation. And I realized at the same time that there's a real gap in the number of skilled tradesmen available. So whether you're talking about electricians or plumbers or painters, you need people with skills to come on your job site to do the work. And obviously there's code enforcement, which is a big part of the process in making sure that you're doing the work to code. And safety for purposes of not only the workers while it's happening, but for the long-term residents of these future homes again. So one thing that became clear to me over time was that there was a gap between the available skilled tradesmen and the people available in the community to work. And I started to realize that part of our opportunity here is to also figure out how to tie those two pieces together and make sure that people that need long-term occupations have some bridge to get there by potentially mentoring with some of the actual skilled, experienced tradesmen so that they could realize that trades and skills in those occupations are very honorable careers and a great way to make money and to have a lifelong of earning and to have skills that can take you from an 18 or 19-year-old person who doesn't have a lot of direction or money-making opportunity to someone that can build their own business and potentially hire other people and eventually themselves mentor other people. So it's actually been another unexpected thing to be able to sort of try to connect the dots on that. I had, a dear friend of mine who's a carpenter and does a lot of work at the City Mission. He's retired. He spent some time with, my project manager to try to teach him some basic carpentry. I have another person that's very dear to me that is an expert painter. And so while he's very busy on the commercial side of the business, he took some time to work with my project manager on working with him on drywall skills. So it takes time. And SEAT and Youth Build and these other organizations that are wonderful that are in Schenectady, it's important to tie all these people together because we have to all, I think the other thing we have a responsibility to our community, all of us, is to realize that the youth need that path.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm sure you see that in the course of your job every day.
Without question. And I'm glad that you mentioned SEAT because the young people at SEAT actually built the frames and did the lightings that actually were installed.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So because, again, about Breathing Lights, it was such a wonderful collaborative.
Yes.
And they reached out to existing agencies. And so that gives people a sense of having contributed to the process and being able to drive by and say, oh, yes, we built those frames, and they could tell you all about it and all of that. And the other thing that they did was also to hire some local contractors to go in and actually put them in. Sure. And then people would have to go change the batteries. So there was a lot of stuff that you don't even think about on a day-to-day that had to happen, but they hired local people to do it. So it was $1 million that was shared among the 3 cities, but they also were able to spend some of that money locally, and people were able to be a part of it and to benefit from it, not just in a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm really happy that you've been able to implement this and get this
and in my
collaboration.
jobs, it's a small scale, right? Because I'm just a small project, but in our fund, I've actually formed a private placement now and am bringing in outside investors, not just my own capital, because I believe in this vision of Eastern Avenue, and I believe that what we're doing here in Schenectady is a part, as Marion said, of something bigger that's very collaborative, and I have so enjoyed getting to meet the ladies at SEAT and Youth Build, and to also meet the young people. And some of them have come from time to time into our project, even if it's just for a day or two here and there. And I'm thrilled to be a part of that, to watch them and how they get excited about, actually participating, swinging a hammer sometimes, or a sledgehammer. But it's fun to watch. And that's been another neat, unexpected reward of being a part of this.
And you do a lot of the things yourself too, of course. a lot of the work.
Yes, I mean, some of the work is just dirty,
Yeah.
tedious work, whether you're talking about debris removal and bagging up, garbage and
Yeah.
and actually moving it to where it needs to be. Yes, it's a lot of hard work. It's good. It's sweat equity, I suppose you'd call it. So.
Right.
But your
Absolutely.
ultimate goal is to have your properties occupied by loving families.
Yeah, it's funny because I look at these houses, and yes, you immediately see the broken windows and the paint that has been avoided for decades, but you also see that somebody at one time had Thanksgiving dinner in there and
Right.
birthday parties, and I walk in, and I think Adam Fralin mentioned this when he was talking about the filming they did in the houses originally. You'd come in and you'd see kids' toys or books on the floor,
Right.
and it really does touch you because you realize that these were people's homes, and ironically, they're solid homes. They
Right.
were really built well back then. So once
Sure.
you strip away the debris and you fix the broken windows and put new ones in, and you keep as much of the old hardwood and the things that you can retain, you actually have a really well-made home and warm and comfortable. And yes, it is our vision. And I say our because it's all of us that are doing this. And Sandy Vardine and I, we talked about how we both have this vision of, in our case, Eastern Avenue becoming a little arts district, because she is in fact an artist, and part of what she is doing with the church, as you mentioned, is related to the art community.
Right.
And I just think it would be great if people thought of Eastern Avenue as a place to go grab a cup of coffee or a bistro meal at the new Copper Keg that they're renovating, and ultimately maybe go to a little art gallery there and maybe an art show at Sandy's church. So that's our vision of where we're going.
So
with
they're
that.
renovating the old copper keg that was
Right.
there. I had been
Yeah.
in that years ago, many years ago.
I heard
That's
about
nice
that.
to hear that.
And I also want to point out that, and let people understand that as individuals, people can buy homes as well.
Yeah.
And part of the way that we had tried to encourage people to know more about that was by putting together the reclamation clinics, which you did mention,
Yeah.
where people can actually come in, find out about the properties, find out what they, in each city, let me just say, had 3, we call them toolboxes.
Right.
Toolboxes A, B, and C. And each city had, it was basically the same type of information, but obviously the organizations in their cities would come, to this particular
Right.
city that it was held in, so that people can learn more about how
Right.
to get a home, what it took to renovate that home, and the
Right.
work that it took to do that, the financing that was going, that it took to get that, so that people were aware.
Yeah.
So that there's opportunities. We definitely have investors like Bonnie, but there's also opportunities for individuals who may want to just buy one house for themselves and their family to live in,
Yeah.
to do that. So
Sure.
let me just also say right here that Schenectady is getting ready to have its final Toolbox C,
Yes.
on April 13th.
Yes.
From 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the McChesney Room, downtown Schenectady.
And we're going to
Library.
have that flyer on the screen so
Okay.
people can see that. There should be a phone number on it, but I want to give that phone number again, or in case
Sure.
it isn't up there. It's 518-274-3050. If anyone has any interest in what we're talking about, hopefully we're inspiring you to get involved and have a vision of the future for our community, which has been progressing nicely in many areas, as the viewers should know that. I'll give the number again. It's 518-274-3050, and I believe that's the number for Barbara Nelson, and
Tap and Troy.
it's called TAP. Okay. So if you leave your name and phone number, if you get a machine, and somebody will call you back. This event, which should be on screen, is with all the mayors, Mayor Sheehan, McCarthy, and Madden, of the 3 cities mentioned. There'll be a networking lunch. There'll be live performances, screenings, policy discussions, and there's going to be a debut of WMHT's production of Behind the Lights documentary. So I didn't know until I went on the website that there was going to be a documentary on the Breathing Lights program.
Exciting.
So that's very exciting. And That is April 7th,
That's
what I just
the
read.
summit.
That's the April 7th
Right.
one. The April 13th is what you're talking about with the toolbox. How many of those have they had?
Each city has had 3.
Each city's had
A, B, and
3.
C, toolbox
Okay.
A, B, and C.
And people can learn about zoning, they can learn about permits at this
Exactly.
one. They can learn about how to connect with contractors. And the site again, because the website said to be announced, it's where?
It's at the McChesney Room at the Downtown Library.
Okay, McChesney Room, Downtown Library in Schenectady,
yes.
of course. And
5:30 to 8 p.m.
5:30 to 8.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think it said that time then, so 5:30 at night till 8:30. But the first project that I mentioned on April 7th is 11:30 in the morning till 8:30 at night.
Yes.
So no excuse for nobody being able to attend that one.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Well, that's like the policy summit, and they'll talk about all the many things that went into the whole Breathing Lights project. So people will hear from ambassadors, they'll hear about projects, the documentary that you mentioned. So this is like an
Yeah.
overall kind of just what has happened so far,
Yeah.
and then where we'd like to go to from here. Because
Yeah.
I'd like to think of Breathing Lights as an ongoing project, not something that
Well,
we
I
just
think that
lit
that's
the
what
lights.
it's meant to be,
Right.
don't you?
Absolutely,
Really?
absolutely. And I have to tell you, that's one of the reasons that I did get involved.
Yeah.
Because as a council member, I try to stay connected to the community because I think that's extremely important.
Yeah.
And when I initially heard the concept about spending $1 million just to light up homes, I had to think about that for a minute. I have to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm like, really? But as I
Did you get some flack from that, from different people?
I wouldn't say that I got flack, but people, just as I just said about myself, didn't really understand it initially.
Well, that's it, and I think ignorance causes a lot of
Well,
misunderstanding
if I can
about
use
things.
an actual reality check on that, because I agree that that's your first reaction.
Yeah.
And I've actually had people say to me, well, why didn't they just spend the money
Right.
to fix
They've
up the
said that to
homes?
me
And
as
so
well.
what my
Yeah.
response to them was, well, if each house costs approximately $150,000 to do them correctly,
Yeah.
literally new plumbing, new electric, new heating systems, new everything.
And that's what it's costing you
It
approximately,
is.
right?
It's very, very, very costly. If that's the cost, you could only do up to 10 houses maybe at the
Yeah.
most if you saved a little bit of money. So having said that, wouldn't you rather use this amazing project that illuminates, no pun intended, the vacancy issue and the opportunity, because it's an opportunity to invest.
Sure.
And that opportunity really, I think, will inspire, hopefully, hundreds of these houses
Right.
to be
Yes.
renovated, not
Definitely,
just
of course.
10. And that's the
Right.
answer. That's why
Absolutely.
putting the money just into the homes wasn't the answer. The money
Yeah.
really was awarded
Yeah.
to this amazing idea that
Right.
Barbara and Adam came up with
Yes.
because it was such a creative way to draw capital. And that's the goal of the Breathing
Yes.
Lights, to draw the capital to create the investment
Of course.
opportunity.
Right, and the money couldn't have been used to renovate the homes. It was
right.
public art money, so.
That's right.
Right.
So this.
Exactly.
And it's, so I started to say, when I first heard about it, I was like, wow. As I got to talk more to Barbara and to Adam, to better understand, and so, which takes me back to why we had the ambassadors, because the ambassadors were then able to speak to people in the community to say,
Right.
Yes.
this is why we're doing this way, as opposed to people not quite understanding it.
Yes.
And once people understood and had could better grasp the concept, people were very receptive, and we had people come out to our art nights, because we
Yes.
used that as a venue where you could come and paint to talk about what you thought your city, how you felt about your neighborhoods.
Yeah.
We did then we did a talk about Breathing Lights and how you could get a house. So we
Yeah.
engaged the community as much as we possibly could, so that people would better understand it. And I have to give a shout out to the Boys and Girls Club in
Yes.
Schenectady for being a
Of
hub.
course you should.
Because Shane Bargy and his staff there and the youth that were there did a fabulous job. They really, really did. And if nothing else, people have to really come to the summit and to see the video about the work they did. Did you get to see it? The actual
I just
video?
saw a glimpse of it.
Oh.
I look forward to seeing it on the 7th.
These young people really did a lot of work, and they expressed how they felt about their neighborhoods. Some expressed despair, but others expressed hope that
Yes.
there was a
Well,
possibility.
we always want to provide hope,
Right.
don't we?
Absolutely.
And then, by the way, ladies, it's no coincidence, talking about illumination, that we're doing a fireside chat today. I have to thank our executive director, Randall, and Randy, who's behind the scenes here filming this. I just love the fact that this is lit, and we're in the month of March, but it's still cold and snowy here.
Yes.
So how appropriate, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the spring renewal is coming soon.
Yeah.
I feel it.
It's on its way. Absolutely.
Renewal.
Absolutely.
We're talking about renewal.
Yes.
So tell me, Bonnie, what is your ultimate goal? I mean, I know you're renovating them, and what would you like to see happen with your properties?
Well, I actually formed a fund from Mohawk Realty Partners. I'm the managing partner, and our goal at the fund is to draw more private capital into our fund. It's a private placement for high net worth investors, and our goal is to, number one, give them a return on their investment, which is the incentive to attract them into the fund. We're not flippers. We believe in investing in the community.
I'm so glad you
that
mentioned that.
we see a long-term result. And our goal is to do that with what we would call an impact investing format, meaning that we're not only creating a fund that's going to create a great return on the investment by rising the value on the whole street for all of the owners of property, including the private owners, but in addition to that, that everyone in the community enjoys, from the little park benches and trees we're putting in to the beauty of a house that used to be dilapidated and vacant and is now quite a showpiece. So we want an impact that's visual. We want a financial impact for our private investors so that they, as equity investors, feel that it was an excellent investment. But we feel that this is just such an amazing collaboration, and that's why we're calling it an impact investing fund. So our goal is to really transform our little section of Eastern Avenue, approximately from where Wendell goes down the hill towards Denny's, and we think it's very possible. It's primarily families in that neighborhood. If you watch the children in the morning, there are approximately 40 or 50 of them that walk up to Elmer School. It's a family neighborhood. It was a family neighborhood decades ago, and it is now. And
The
now
school
we're
bus
just going
stops
to wake
there,
it up. That's
doesn't it?
right.
Of
Yes.
course.
So our goal is to really make it a lovely place to live. It's walking distance from downtown, and all
Very
that they've done.
convenient
It's just
to everything,
wonderful.
close to the library,
Yes.
the
It's
post office.
walking distance to Proctor's, to
Proctor's.
30 restaurants, nightclubs.
This is what I love about it. I live in the Stockade, and I can walk,
Yes,
everywhere
yes.
if I choose to.
Right.
Yes.
Did you want to mention the addresses of your properties?
Sure. I mean, if people want to drive by, just note that we're still in progress. We're still doing the work. The first one that we're really trying to finish by approximately April, and we've actually been eligible to receive a little bit of grant money to match our own investment in the fund, or to at least give a piece of it, is 854 Eastern Avenue. 854 Eastern Avenue is an A-frame house that had a fire at one point, and it was slated to potentially be demolished. And it was while I was at that Breathing Lights initial event, the hosting initial event, debut, if you will, where Steve Streichman talked me into walking over and looking at it, and I made the decision to buy that night. So so that's the first address, 854. That'll be the first property that we finish. And I've also targeted a series of brick houses on Lower Eastern Avenue at 764, 762, which are two houses that were lit with breathing lights during the pilot program. And hopefully very soon we'll be announcing some adjacent properties as well, because that whole section of brick homes are just beautiful.
So is the work being done in there as we speak
Yes,
as well?
it is.
But
it is.
the one that we filmed that's on screen, there'll be an open house there.
Yes, we're
down
we're
the
trying
road.
to team up with the other developers. So I know Rocky Man is doing some work right next door to me, and as we mentioned, the old Copper Keg is being renovated. So we're going to try to time it where our work completion is hopefully in sync with one another, so that we can welcome some people from the neighborhood and anyone from the Breathing Lights organization to stop by and see the work that we've done.
Now, what are the plans for the Copper Keg?
I don't know. I know that David Hogenkamp at Metroplex and, serving to help with the land bank, I know David keeps involved with that project. And
Yeah.
you can probably go to the Metroplex's website
Right.
or, to keep track of some of those projects. But I know that they are basically making it into a nice little bistro again. And so, again, part of the neighborhood.
Nice.
Right.
Certainly.
Yeah. So
Lovely.
There's a park that's going in there, Tribute Park.
That's
so
a good point,
There's,
yes.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot.
now, whereabouts would that be?
That's on Eastern Avenue.
Tribute
But,
Park is
yeah.
approximately near Wendell, meeting
Oh,
Eastern
okay.
Avenue. There used to
Okay.
be 3 homes that apparently were not salvageable
Oh,
that the
okay.
city knocked down. And so that park, which is actually going to be quite lovely, and they've already got most of the
Yes.
hardscape in place
Yeah.
and the lighting in place, that too will be opening in the spring. So it'll be really, really nice. I started a small not-for-profit to after my grandmother Agnes, and she loved gardens, and I think people love gardens, whether it just be a place to sit down and have a shade tree and a few flowers. So we're going to be putting one of the small plots in the Tribute Park, which will be a nice place for anybody in the neighborhood to just go sit and enjoy some green space.
So what is the name of your nonprofit?
Agnes's Gardens.
Oh, how lovely.
Thank you. But,
Lovely.
that's, again, just another way to make sure that we're not just fixing a single home.
Yeah.
Right.
We're trying to transform the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, that's so inspiring. Now, I do want to ask you, what are some of the challenges that you've run up against? I know financing is a big thing, and I know you did get some funding from Metroplex, correct?
Well, not Metroplex, but actually the grants that are being facilitated through the Capital Region Land Bank.
Okay.
And again, I have to thank David Hogenkamp. He's been just a wonderful supporter in helping us, not myself and other developers, understand how to apply for whenever there is some grant money available. Because it's really a matching. You still have to put your private capital in
Yes.
first, and that has to come first.
Yes.
To apply for the eligible monies, and they are time limited. So the monies are typically not available for long periods of time. You have to work quickly to incentivize us.
Yeah.
But having said that, the hurdles, if you will, are somewhat mental. This is a project that requires, I don't know, it's just a tremendous amount of tenacity and patience and perseverance, sometimes through the fact that some of the trade skilled workers will not necessarily want to work on small projects, and these are hard projects.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, because of the condition of the building when you
That's
get
right.
it.
Yes.
And let me also say that I think it also takes vision, because it's not everyone that could walk into a property that looked like some of the ones that I've seen, like we
Yes.
and think and see what it could really be transformed to. So it takes vision.
And Bonnie can do that. You've been able to do that. That's
Yeah.
what,
I think
what
that's
keeps you
a very
going.
special skill
It's a
that you
special
have
skill.
to be able to do that, because
Yes.
some people will walk in like, as a matter of fact, you mentioned the one house that you did buy was slated for demolition. So it was
Yeah.
like, this cannot be salvaged. And Bonnie came along and was like, I think we can do something with that.
Wait till
And
you
so-
see how beautiful that
Right.
house will be in just a few months. We're close.
Well, I
We're
can't
getting
wait
there.
to go and
Here we are.
see that.
Yeah. So I also think that when people are able to see the work that you've done, and maybe they wouldn't do it as an investor, but they'll be able to say, well, look, I can also get a property and
Yes, and this is our hope
renovate
for
it.
today, that people are going to
Absolutely.
get inspired.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to talk to you, Bonnie. Are
Well,
you
I
willing
absolutely
to
welcome
give your
anybody.
phone number a couple of times on air? Or
We have a Facebook page for Mohawk Realty Partners, and anyone is welcome to come to that page and join our group to follow along with the pictures on our progress. And we can be contacted that way. I suppose it makes sense to put my phone number out there. It's 518 400-9750. So people are welcome to call me. You mentioned about what are the challenges. Certainly another one is getting the capital.
Certainly.
I've got a lot of personal capital into it so far, but that's finite. And so you get to a point where you see the more opportunity than you have money to spend on it. And, ultimately I welcome other equity investors if they're interested in understanding our financial structure and the governance that we have in place over the capital, and how we're working closely with the Capital Region Land Bank to try to basically do the best job with all the objectives we've talked about today.
Yeah, and I had met someone that was interested in talking to you, and I did refer this person
Yes,
to you.
thank you
So
for that.
it's possible that will
Yes.
go someplace.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and we certainly need the trade skills. That's
Absolutely.
We do.
I've been reading a lot about that. So
An example that Marion was so helpful recently with Nino, our project manager, who himself had his own article in the Gazette, which was wonderful.
Yes, it
and
was.
Marion was helpful in just making sure that he got his OSHA training, which is important. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle for them to do this
Absolutely.
work.
Right, and sometimes,
Yes.
and so he was doing the work, and it was lovely to meet him actually.
Yeah.
So I asked about that. It's like, no, I don't have that. So and that's what we have to do
Yes.
is to support our young people, like
Yes.
in the things that they need. Because he talked about having his own business one day and doing that. So he was able to take that, and I actually went to the training just to stop in, and so I saw him there, and he was so grateful to be there, to be
Yes.
able to avail himself to that. And let me also say that there's a group, MCTAP, which stands for the Minority Contractors Technical Assistance Program.
Oh, great.
That also works with people who are in the trades and really need to build up their skill set.
Yes.
Some have small businesses, and some are just individuals who need to do that.
Right.
So that's a place where people are starting to look for people to probably work on their projects, could probably avail themselves to that resource and get some people from there who would be able to do some of the work. So
Right.
there's a lot going on in
Yes.
Schenectady. There's a
There
lot
is
of
a lot
renovation in
going
Schenectady.
on. It's
But it's sometimes
exciting.
it's just tying the pieces together.
Well, that's not always easy to do.
No, it's not. No, it's
Yes,
not. So
that's
thank
true.
you for doing this, because
Yes.
this will be a lot of information for people to have to
Right.
be able to avail themselves to the different resources that are out there.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be around for a while because you're running again for re-election,
I
right?
am running for re-election, and yes, and then I agree with you. I will be around for a while.
Well, you have my vote.
You have my vote,
I'm
too.
a Schenectady resident now, so
Oh,
I can vote for
okay.
you.
Well, thank you, because I just am excited about what's going on here, and really
Yes.
excited to be a part of it. I've lived in
Yes.
Schenectady, I would say, basically my entire life, because I was in elementary school when I moved
Wow.
here. So
Yeah.
I think that
Well, I've lived here all my life as well.
Yeah, so
And I'm really invested in the community.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've seen Schenectady what it was, and then I've seen a bit of a decline. Let's just
Yeah.
say what
Right.
really happened.
Yeah.
But I see that the Schenectady is back on the it's coming up
upswing,
again. It's definitely on the
definitely.
upswing. And the renovation that's going on all over the city. With downtown, and as you'll hear the mayor and Metroplex talk about how they're moving out into the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Then we have private investors doing things, and individuals doing things. So Schenectady, it's just really showing a lot of improvement, and
Right.
a lot of people are wanting to move here and
Yes.
become homeowners, which is we want.
That's what we want. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm sure after today's show, you're going to get some calls.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we are all in this together.
Yes.
This is a process, and it's a long, long process.
Right.
And it's, I welcome anyone's inquiries, and
Yeah.
or we will certainly let people know through our Facebook page with Mohawk Realty Partners when we're having any open houses, so that people can see our progress.
Yeah, you want to make sure that that's announced. I don't know if you can get it in our local gazette or not.
Okay.
But I think
great
it's
idea.
important because of
definitely.
what's been going on, that it is advertised.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it is. It just as a
Yeah.
community event, because it will be a community event.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Definitely, and
Yeah.
I definitely want to be there. Just for the audience, you're watching SAC, the Schenectady Access Cable Council. Hopefully you're watching it on Channel 16, or you're watching it on our website, which is sac.tv. We're with YouTube, and this has the ability to go all over the world. So let your friends in Europe, for instance, let them know about SAC, because we're really proud of the work that we do here to get information out to the community, to raise awareness. This is what we're doing
Absolutely.
today, to give people hope. And I'm sure something really wonderful will come from this show today. Is there anything else that you ladies would like to offer
Well, I'd like to say
the
just
audience?
thank you to Janice and to SAC and to Marion for all of her support, but to just the Breathing Lights organization in general. I think they did such an amazing job. It was a beautiful project, and I was honored to be a part of it, even in a very small way. So thank you to
Yeah,
them,
well,
that
these two
organization.
final events of the first phase will be coming up in April, like we mentioned earlier.
Right.
So maybe we can have that flyer put up there again so that people see the dates and
Right.
and there's phone numbers on that.
Yes, and I'd also like to say thank you for doing this, for providing the opportunity
Yes.
to, for people to know more about what's going on about Breathing
Right.
Lights and other things in the city. And thank you for Bonnie for the work that she's doing.
Well, it's
And
wonderful.
to say that this is ongoing, I just want people to really understand
Yes.
that this is something that is ongoing.
Things don't happen overnight
that's right.
necessarily.
Breathing Lights was something to start it, to bring attention to what the vacancies that we had, but to go beyond that, to do something about the vacancy. So, that's where we are
Yeah.
at this point. It's starting to happen, as we've spoken about. And our summit will talk about that on April 7th, which you just mentioned.
Yes.
Starting at 11:30, I think it is. It's going to be a
Yes.
very long day, but it's okay. It's going to be totally worth it, and you'll be
Yes.
fed as well. And it'll go
Oh,
till
well,
8:30
that's nice
in the
to
evening.
know. People will have food. They'll
there
need
will be food.
nourishment.
Yes,
They'll
wouldn't keep
be
you all
there.
day without nourishment. And I also
Well, there's a luncheon at a networking luncheon,
Right,
it said,
right,
at
so-
that first one.
Right, so
yes.
April 7th, absolutely.
April
So
7th.
there will be food.
Uh-huh.
I also want to say thank you to Judy Gilmore, who has really done a lot to oversee this project as well, and putting a lot of the pieces together. And I think we should probably mention the fact that there was also an exhibit down at the library. I don't know if you get a chance to
Oh, I
see it.
didn't know that.
It was called "Housing is a Human Right."
Oh,
So
wow.
there were two artists that came in to talk about housing as a human right. So it was an art exhibit, but in addition to that, there was an opportunity for people to come and talk about
Right.
housing as a right. It's not just something, it's not a luxury, it's a
Yes.
right that everyone should have. So Breathing Lights brought a lot of components, probably more than we've had an opportunity
Yes.
to talk about in this hour. But
Yes.
Breathing Lights brought a lot of components together to really, to just shine a light on this particular,
Yes.
I don't want to call it a problem, I'll call it a challenge.
Yes.
So this
Yes.
particular challenge within the community.
And it's unprecedented.
It really is. It really is. And again, to Adam Fralin and Barb Nelson,
Yes.
to even have thought of
Yes,
that,
very
to
talented.
present it in such a way.
Yes.
A
Well,
lot of
I've
credit
learned
goes
a
to them.
lot, and I always learn a lot from my guests.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a little bit, but now I know so much more, and I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. And just keep going, keep up your strength and your health, and
Thank you. I have faith.
yes,
Yes.
and that's
You
so
have to have
important.
faith.
And,
Absolutely, without
and
doubt.
I'm sure we've provided hope and curiosity, and
Right.
I'm sure you'll get calls. And thank you all for tuning in today. I'm the host and producer of this show. It's the Janice Thompson Show, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.